Dharmendra ji, we can start.
Fine. So good afternoon to all, and welcome to this knowledge-focused 5-day IMDI webinar series along with a virtual medical devices manufacturing technology show. It's a matter of pride for the organizers and equally so for all the participants, the stakeholders, the delegates and visitors that this is the only event for medical disposables and implants industry in India with the virtual show displaying materials, components, machinery, technologies and services required for the manufacturing of medical devices. The medical device industry has always attracted great interest in India, and particularly in the recent times since the government of India has started giving huge importance to it in terms of getting it more organized, getting it under the ambit of the FDCA, and more so now when the government has increased its allocation and spending in the public health sector. In this context, this webinar series and the virtual technology display show is expected to provide a platform for knowledge sharing, brainstorming, and networking. The IMDI conferences are organized by Classic Computer Services, a company which specializes and targets audiences in order to provide strategic and timely information. They are information resources for medical technology and markets. They have publications, internet portal, they organize exhibitions and conferences and market research since the last 26-27 years. Through a production process focused on end user research and design, the team is able to understand the immediate business concerns of the leading executives of the day. Keynote presentations, case studies, and panel discussions are delivered by industry experts with extensive knowledge of their respective sectors and specialties. Exhibitors showcase new developments, technologies, innovations, and services. The webinar series is being held in conjunction with this virtual trade show, Meditech Expo, which is organized by Radical Communications. Radical Communications has established itself as one of the renowned international exhibition and conference organizations in India and Africa. They have been organizing exhibitions in varied business sectors in the domestic as well as the international circuit. Radical Communications, with experience of more than 10 years in the exhibition industry, has partnered and represented India at various global exhibitions that have taken place in different parts of the world. You will be happy that this event is sponsored by Covestro, the LDRA, and the GLR Laboratories Limited. The event is supported by a lot of associations. The Association of Medical Devices Industry, IMED, Association of Diagnostics Manufacturers of India, the All India Plastic Manufacturers Association, the Engineering Exports Promotion Council India, the Association of Healthcare Providers India, the Medical Disposables Manufacturers Association, the MSME Chamber of Commerce and Industry of India, the Consultants Consortium of Chennai, and the JSS Business Incubator. The theme for today's webinar, which is Medical Device Industry, India, a potential global manufacturing hub. Without much ado, let us begin the deliberations with a resolve to remain responsible and contribute to providing the best medical devices to enable the healthcare professionals of India to serve the humanity in the best possible way. May I invite Mr. Sanyal Desai, the Managing Director, Radical Communications, to give his welcome address, please. Mr. Sanyal Desai.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. Friends, all the exhibitors, all the visitors, we welcome all of you to this second virtual Meditech and Healthcare Expo. As you all are aware, that first edition was organized in the month of September on a different theme, where I would like to also welcome our partner, Mr. Pandya, for his continuous support to us. I think this partnership has a long way to go, and we are sure that in future, where everything goes normal, you will have more and more such kind of events or exhibition from both of us in the near future. Special thanks to Mr. Rajiv Nath for his continuous support. Special thanks to Mr. Padmakumar, Mr. Agrawal, and Dr. herself. This is a time of virtual, so let me welcome all of you through a small video which we made, a virtual welcoming video. So I would request my team to present this welcome virtual video. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the virtual exhibition arena of iRadical. We wish you happy and fruitful experience. Click on videos for more information.
Second Meditech and Healthcare Expo welcomes you to the Future of Exhibition organized by iRadical. Second Meditech and Healthcare Expo is live with 7 days of exhibition and 5 days of exclusive webinar sessions organized by IMDI Conferences. We welcome and thank all attendees, visitors, exhibitors and delegates from different parts of the world for their active participation and support in order to make this exhibition happen. Special thanks to all important speakers and supportive organizations to make the platform informative and knowledge-sharing point. We also would like to thank our sponsors and media partners to spread about the Meditech and Healthcare Expo on various platforms. Now this is the phase where we see that we're coming out from the uncertain time to certainty, so digital platform is the only medium where we can share our thoughts, meet industry stakeholders from the new areas and most importantly we connect with each other to shape our future. We really hope that the second Meditech and Healthcare Expo will be beneficial to each one of us. We wish you a successful event.
Thank you so much, team, for sharing this virtual welcoming video. We always try to deliver something new every time, and in these 7 days, we are going to witness more than 1,000 business visitors in the exhibition and more than, I think, 500 attendees and delegates in this 5 days webinar. So thank you so much, and we welcome all of you again. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Joshi. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanyal Desai. And let me appreciate your efforts in creating this beautiful and very useful virtual exhibition and conference platform. I now invite Mr. D.L. Pandya, the webinar coordinator, convener, and CEO, Medical Plastic Data Service, for his address, please. Mr. Pandya.
Shri Rajiv Nath ji, Padmakumar Sahab, Dr. Atul Sardana, Mr. Deepak Agarkhed, visitors and participating delegates, friends and ladies and gentlemen. I welcome all the dignitaries and especially the speakers who have kindly agreed to share their knowledge, experience and vision for the benefit of industry. The kind of support and cooperation from the industry leaders in the medical devices and allied industry has been motivating us to carry out this activity year after year since 2001. And without the stakeholders of this sector as our backbone, it would not have been possible for us to continue consecutive for 16 years, including we also acknowledge and also welcome the office bearers of all leading industry associations in the medical device and diagnostic sector, pharmaceutical sector, and plastic sector. As Mr. Senyal Desai informed, we had a phase 1 of this IMDI webinar series in the month of September, wherein we had more than 300 participants, and I'm happy to say that for this 5-day series as phase 2 of this IMDI 2020 webinar series, we have many more participants than the earlier one. We have 30 industries leaders who will share their knowledge over this 5-day period with all the delegates. Friends, this year's event is regarding the potential for global manufacturing, to make India the global manufacturing hub in the country. And I know that there is a long way to go. There are challenges. There are, problems to overcome. But as the speakers will share with you in the coming hours, it's possible for us to manage and bring India to the level of the global manufacturing hub in the world. And for achieving this objective, we need a very strong ecosystem with highly integrated and interactive stakeholders. We know that medical device sector is a multidisciplinary sector, and it is not possible to grow without interdisciplinary integrated approach with the allied sector. So we need cooperation across the disciplines and sectors. And through this event, our mission is to create a platform for Indian medical device industry, not only for knowledge sharing and brainstorming, but also to interact with the stakeholders, material suppliers, machinery suppliers, technology providers, product and service providers, as well as academic and research organizations, with an objective to facilitate healthy growth for the industry. Let me make a special mention and our deepest sense of appreciation for two associations, namely the Consultants Consortium of Chennai and the Association of Diagnostic Manufacturers of India, to this event, by supporting this event by way of conceptualizing and managing two different sessions in this 5-day event. We look forward for more and more associations to join us in our mission to reach the industry with very valuable knowledge and information. We are also grateful to both the associations and would welcome more associations like this. I won't take much of your time. And before I say thank you, I would once again welcome and thank all dignitaries, industry leaders, professionals, sponsors, exhibitors, and last but not the least, and the most important, the participation by the delegates in this webinar series. Thank you very much. Thank you to all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pandya. You're consistent and Your consistent and untiring efforts for the medical devices industry for the past 3 decades are very well appreciated. No major event in the medical device industry can become successful without the support of AIMED and without the magnetic presence of Mr. Rajiv Nath, the founder and forum coordinator of AIMED and the managing director of Hindustan Syringes and Medical Devices Limited, New Delhi. The Hindustan Syringes and Medical Devices Limited, New Delhi has created a niche for their disposable syringe Dispovan, which is today the most popular brand in syringe market in India. If I talk about Mr. Rajiv Nath, he is the president of the All India Syringes and Needles Manufacturing Association, apart from being the founder of the AIMED. He is also the joint coordinator of Indian Medical Device Regulatory Review Group, joint coordinator of Uday MED, the forum of user, developer, academia, industry, medical device development interface with the government, board member of the Kalam Institute of Healthcare Technology, member National Medical Device Promotion Council, chairman IPC Committee and Medical Device Standards, chairman Technical Committee ICMED certification by the Quality Council of India, member of the Expert Advisory Group for Biomedical Device and Technology Development by Department of Science and Technology, member of the Medical Devices Expert Advisory Group to CDSCO for Regulations in India. Mr. Nath has widely traveled all over the world to more than 50 countries and has attended various meetings of WHO, ICA, SA, SIGN, ISO, Stop TV. He is also a member of the ISO and TC 84. Mr. Rajiv Nath is here today as the guest of honor, and I request him to kindly give his presentation and speech, please.
Thank you for the very kind and very warm welcome. How much time do I have for the presentation? I will time myself accordingly.
Pandya Sahib?
Yeah, tell me.
Time. How much time he is asking?
Oh, sir, about 20-25 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Pandya. And it's always a pleasure to be with you. I think after many years, we are meeting like this virtually and not in Ahmedabad. It was always an annual Mecca visit to come to Ahmedabad, and I've always been impressed by Mr. Pandya's very humble and very inclusive nature, whereby at his own cost and his own initiative, without any government support of any kind, year on year, he has been taking the initiative of trying to replicate a mini component in India, getting suppliers to medical device industry to come forward and give their technologies, materials, products, and also bring us manufacturers at one forum over there so that we can learn and be inspired by each other. So this time, Mr. Pandya discussed with me and he asked me to speak and address the issue that we've been talking about India being Atmanirbhar. Beyond being Atmanirbhar for India's needs, how do we take the opportunity to become a global manufacturing hub? And what are the challenges that are being faced for manufacturers to come forward and create a brand India position all over the world so that India is recognized as the leading top 5 manufacturing hubs in the world? So today's talk and presentation is going to be about that. And most of it is I've got from interactions and inputs from all of you. So this is the brief summary of the imports and exports. This is the huge problem. India is 80% import dependent. Last year's imports cost 41,400 crore rupees. And the bulk of it is medical electronics. In the green you can see over there. This is the huge problem. At the same time, there's also a huge potential. Because on the right side, you can also see our exports, which have been also growing at a healthy pace. The rate of increase of our exports is much faster than the rate of increase of our imports. Last year, imports were crossed 16,000 crore rupees. They could have been more except for the last 3 weeks lost in the lockdown. The graph on the left shows the huge problem, but also shows the potential. Because that 41,000 crore rupees can be converted into manufacturing in India. And if we manufacture in the country, we don't have to make only for India, we can make for the world. Because when we succeed in India, we succeed in India, not only for India, but we also succeed to enter the international market as shown by the graph on the right. So what's our agenda and about this presentation? So IMED has an agenda to encourage Make in India, to make the medical device industry and fulfill PM's vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat in the area of medical devices. It's as simple as that. And while doing it, we seek that the IMED members must do it in a responsible manner. They should do it ethically and with high quality products. So these are the objectives we've been discussing with our members, and we've been identifying the challenges they've been facing. And we've been discussing with various stakeholders and solution providers for the needs and the solutions which have been sought and which can be provided. We've been working with various consultants. And today we'll be focusing upon all these challenges and what are the problem areas and how to fix them and what kind of timelines and what kind of case studies we have. So in September this year, we had organized an initial webinar with Vadvani Foundation. Vadvani Foundation is a foundation from Mr. Vadvani in USA, who is a non-resident Indian and has succeeded exceedingly well in the IT space. And he has earmarked 200 crore rupees for India to help the MSME industry to come forward. And one sector Vadvani Foundation chose was the medical device industry. So we've been working with them, and with the 2 webinars we've done with them, they have engaged with 15 of the MSMEs from the 28 attendees who attended the webinars. And with the ongoing engagements, we've got some very interesting examples of Dr. Sabharwal making wound dressing products, who's engaging in the area of rebranding, marketing, and in people's management. There's another company called Excellence in Mumbai who makes surgical instruments, and they're engaging the help of Vadvani Foundation in the area of business operating growth and in execution advisory. And there's another company in Bangalore called Agarkhed Innovations, who is engaged with Vadvani Foundation to guide them in the area of go-to-marketing strategy, in business planning and implementation strategy, and in raising funds. So these are some of the areas where our partners can possibly help some of you going forward, and today I will detail over here. So when COVID came this year, it has been a roller coaster year, where we found that when we started the year with a good amount of optimism, when the government had increased the customs duties by 5%, by giving a surcharge on imports, so that gave some sort of protection to the industry. But at the same time, COVID came along immediately after that. And India was exposed in its healthcare insecurity, whereby we certainly found that we did not have the wherewithal to sustain and support the ecosystem, because India did not have the medical devices to fight COVID. When the government reached out to us and they realized that Chinese imports had completely stopped to a halt because of the Chinese New Year in February, and then the shipping lines also stopped, So with the result, there was an extreme supply crisis. A simple thing like masks and coveralls to protect the healthcare workers was not available. And one could see that if oxygen was going to be an issue, ventilators was a limited manufacturing capacity. So there was an engagement on a war footing basis by central government through IMED with the manufacturers in the country. And from 7 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock at night, there used to be phone calls and a chase on either ways. We sought help for the factories which had closed down to be opened up. Government sought information from us as to where are the problems and what needs to be done to resolve the problems and to ease production bottlenecks. So with the result that we found that with the good coordination and teamwork, this problem and crisis could be turned into an opportunity. And you can see the sky blue is what we were making before. Very limited capacity of PPE kits and gloves and ventilators and sanitizers and goggles and masks. This is what was listed with IMED. And the dark blue is what was listed with IMED in June onwards. So there was a rapid increase in production capacity and number of manufacturers which got whether to make the test kits. And I don't need to give the details to you. All of you are well aware of the success story, which even the Prime Minister is proud to talk about. And medical device became a foremost focus point for the whole country, whereby people who were in the transport industry, in tourism, in hospitality, in hotel industry, in restaurants, automakers, auto components, who did not find a bright future for themselves in COVID times, decided to diversify into medical devices. Garment manufacturers overnight switched the tailoring lines to make PPE kits and imported the seam sewing machines from Hong Kong with guidance from IMED and from the Textile Ministry. So we could show to the world that yes, when there's a crisis, we can resolve these issues and we can become Atmanirbhar. On today's date, we have a surplus manufacturing capacity in all these products. There's a glut of manufacturing capacity, so that glut is a problem, but it's also an opportunity because it allows the manufacturers now to use their surplus capacity to go to the international markets and raise brand India flag overseas, whether it is for the PPE coveralls or for the gloves or for the goggles or for sanitizers or swabs or for the test kits. But we discussed and how to take this now initial interest in medical devices forward. And how do we encourage the MSME sector more further in this area? So they briefed us that they have the system whereby we can help the MSME members of IMED by allowing them to network with potential partners in India and overseas, help to scale up their business and diversify their business with more medical device which are being imported but can be made in India and exported, provide experts who are industry experts and leaders who will provide free mentorship and free consultancy from leading consultancy organizations and from agencies running or retired. And number three, to provide these manufacturers with quality tools to make the products with higher quality and with better management systems to have the capacity and ability to face business challenges. So these are some of the challenges which we collected from the members in interacting with them. The first and foremost challenge which came to my notice was that the challenge of cash flows. Many people reported to me that states like Andhra Pradesh had not paid up for 2 years at a time. UP more than 1.5 years, 1 year. You had central government itself not paying for nearly 6 months' time. So how to address that problem? Now, the MSME ministry has given a modus operandi to file and use their ministry to sort of create like a lawsuit kind of a thing against the buyers, the buyers who are not paying them on time. And MSME members from IMED can use this facility. There is also now credit available from the SIDBI bank to help you tide over your cash flow issues. And if you want more funds for growth, then consultants from Padmani Foundation can help you understand as to how to raise private equity funds or venture capital funds. The next area was on tariff policy. Competition from low-cost imports due to low duties made most projects unviable. And even though because of shortages for masks and PPE, for example, and ventilators, people had come forward to the factories as the imports opened up from China and as the goods started coming in. With the deluge of imports coming in from China in June, there was a big crisis in the market because these imports came at nil rate of duty. And competition with nil rate of duty meant the death of these newborn babies and a big challenge for them. So this was again a huge challenge for which we reached out to the government that kindly reverse the duty reduction decision and roll it back to the earlier one, which they did. But we still seek further support for that. Another area has been the competition from pre-owned medical electronics, which was evident in the case of ventilators. The ventilator manufacturing in the country was very limited with only 8 manufacturers, but it went up to 17 manufacturers. And the 8 manufacturers were making hardly 3,500 ventilators in a year because the country was mainly importing new or pre-owned medical ventilators. But with the crisis, there was a support system available for them to go forward. And now that the policymakers have realized this issue, they should make sure that they should put curbs on the import of this kind of equipment to address the manufacturer's challenges. Another issue of challenge has been vendors asking the Indian manufacturers to match the L1 price from China. Here again, the government has tweaked the public procurement order and put in some barriers so that it's not so easy for Chinese sellers to bid directly to Indian government tenders. So now distributors would have to import, and then after importing and paying the custom duties, they would have to bid the government tenders, which makes the price a little bit more expensive. Still, of course, they are cheap, but now it's not so easy, and the government is helping in terms of asking the manufacturers to meet the L1 price, for which we are seeking them to provide more remunerative rates by having preferential pricing. A challenge still to be discussed and to be taken forward. Another challenge for manufacturers has been seeking US FDA and CE certification and overseas regulatory approvals for exports, for which we have been educating members that they need to take ICMET certification from Quality Council of India, which will give them the competency and an automatic certification of ISO 13485. And with this certificates, they would have the confidence to apply for the US FDA and CE certification and for other regulatory approvals in Brazil and other countries, or even for MT-SAP certification, which is required for USA or for Canada, Brazil and Japan. And this will allow them to be having the wherewithal to enter the export market with more confidence and strength. Another area of challenge was on regulations, for which Niti Aayog has been quite responsive, and they've created a draft law which we hope will be put into the public domain and will allow the medical device rules, which are now applicable for all medical devices under the Drugs Act from 1st of April this year, after the 1.5 year voluntary registration period is over. We hope meanwhile the government will allow the movement of these medical device rules under the new act, and we hope the new act will be having provisions which will not treat manufacturers as criminals and have jail terms as a threat for minor offences and minor misdemeanors. Another challenge has been for entrepreneurs and startups how to succeed in the private hospital segment when they have to compete with well-entrenched brands who offer a higher margin and higher MRP to hospitals over there. Another target area and challenge has been in terms of people, when they go to the IMED website, they find a listing over there of what's being imported and how much is being imported to some level. But that gives a category. It may not give product families details. So we rely that the good thing when the COVID crisis came, the government was giving us clear numbers. How many ventilators are required? How many PP kits are required? What is the target price? When an entrepreneur knows what's the target price and what is the aggregate market demand, he gets the confidence to make an investment. So this is again a challenge that for each of the product categories that India is importing, if the entrepreneurs could be knowing more accurate data, they'll be able to choose which product line they would be interested to invest in. Because there's no point of investing in those products which are already being made in the country and there's already excessive competition. Let us focus on those products which are being imported and which can be profitable. But data is needed for that. The next area has been competition from unlicensed manufacturers without regulatory labels and with certificates. Especially things like PPE kits and masks. You've got people claiming to have N95, NIOSH certification or US FDA or CE marking, and without the CE marking number, they are just putting CE mark on their products and selling in the market with fake certificates, which is completely unfair on those manufacturers who have invested in the infrastructure to get the certification. So how to stop this problem has been a huge challenge proposed in front of us. Another area has been they would spend 2-3 years trying to create a factory in a village and then getting the license for change of license from agricultural land to industrial usage. And access to low-cost land and infrastructure was always a challenge. So very limited availability of plug-and-play facilities, like we've created in Andhra Pradesh, in Visakhapatnam, the Andhra Meditech zone, or in Hyderabad, Telangana. So what about the other states was always a challenge. Then the issue of unethical marketing practices. Though the government has got PMP, the pharmaceutical marketing practices code by the Department of Pharmaceuticals, but still this is a huge challenge as to how to match the deep-pocketed marketers of large companies, both MNCs and Indian companies, who would lure doctors with overseas trips or travel and gifts as motivation for sponsoring their products and endorsing them. Then the issue, of course, is expensive exhibitions and conferences in these hospitals. And then the challenge of proving to the doctors that your product is equally good. So the foreign companies would show a lot of studies and scientific data, whereas Indian manufacturers would not be having the clinical trials and the clinical evaluations to prove that their product is of equal quality and safe enough. So how to make the studies and how to make it impressive presentation. And then how to overcome the branding of these large giants in terms of quality and performance. Then the issue of selling dialyzers, lab equipment to hospitals who would be already having the machinery from the buyer, the seller of these products, and would say, since I have the machine, I'm getting the machine for free, I'm obliged to get the consumables also from the supplier. So bundled supplies created a competition barrier. How towards that? Then the issue of not properly framed technical specifications, which would keep out the substandard quality from the importers and the traders, or even the low quality domestic manufacturers armed with fake certificates. How to address that issue in the absence of standards? Then the biggest issue is of pseudo manufacturers, whereby manufacturers within the country would be importing and putting branding and labeling, and then trying to pass themselves off as a supplier in the country and as a manufacturer. So of course, the public procurement order now has got two levels of suppliers. One is level 1, which is more than 50% domestic content, and second is level 2. So if tenders come out more with level 1, this is a better protection for the actual manufacturers. And access to R&D facilities and capabilities has been a huge challenge. It's one thing to copy a product and one thing to do an R&D to make a better product. And how do you source technology from overseas, and how do you upgrade your technology? And how do you become world class if you have to globally compete? That's a huge challenge. And then hiring sales staff, not only for India, but overseas. You have to sell your salespeople from international travels. And once they are trained, they are going abroad, they have the knowledge, then they come back and open their own trading companies or join some other larger manufacturer. So how do you retain that talent has been a huge challenge. So this has been the big need by many of us. How do we address these challenges, and what are the solutions, if any? And I would recommend to you that you can write to us in IMET. We will link up with Vadvani Foundation, and they can discuss with you and help you with possible solutions by putting you across to the right kind of consultant and the right kind of solution provider, and help you to set timeline targets to resolve those issues. So these are the steps which normally work forward. Step 1 is with the various consultants and the solution providers. And solution providers not necessarily with Vadvani only. A solution provider can be IIT Madras, it can be IIT Bombay, it can be the textile committee, it can be the textile ministry, it can be the Department of Pharmaceuticals, it can be DSG, it can be BIRAC, it can be C Camp in Bangalore, it can be the venture, support system in Pune, and they will understand your problem and understand how it can possibly be fixed. And then together sit down with you and put target timelines for fixing those timelines. So the government, of course, is helping us. They have put some surcharge on the imports, like I told you this year. They have tweaked the Make in India public procurement order to be more supportive to the country. They have come out with a PLI scheme, which is to attract 28 manufacturers to make 4 categories of high-end products, whether for dialysis or implants. And they have a target to put up 4 medical device parks in different parts of the country. And now we are aware that more than 10 states in the country are seeking to put up these parks. And some of them are so motivated that whether they get the help from the central government or not, they are completely motivated that they will go ahead on their own and invest in these medical device parks. So let us jointly work together. These are the issues which have been brought to our knowledge. There may not be more. So if you have any questions or clarifications, feel free to email to us and we will collate your issues. We may not be able to provide you consultancy from IMET on an individual basis, but we can put you across to the consultants who can possibly help you or collate your requirements and pitch that to the policy makers so that the government can understand the issue and instead of being the problem can be part of the solution. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. You have been a guide, a mentor, and a motivator to the medical devices industry in India with your vision and clarity of purpose. May you continue to patronize many a new and budding entrepreneurs in the industry in the coming times. Thank you very much. For the keynote address today, we have Shri C. Padmakumar, Director, Kerala Lifesciences Industries Park Private Limited, a professional manager with a bachelor's degree in commerce and an MBA in marketing. Mr. Padmakumar started his career as a junior project executive and worked up his way from the shop floor in India's first blood bag company, the Peninsula Polymers Limited, Penpol. The company is now established as one of the largest manufacturing sites for blood bed in the world and is the market leader in India. Terumo Penpal products are sold in over 80 countries all over the world. Mr. Padmakumar has worked in various functions, including the project management, manufacturing, finance, human resources, and sales and marketing. He has worked as sales manager TTK Pharma Limited and is now the chairman and managing director of Terumo Penpal Limited, a subsidiary of the Japanese multinational Terumo Corporation. He is a patron member of the Trivandrum Management Association, a member of the Trivandrum Tennis Club, and a past president of the Rotary Club of Trivandrum. He was the chairman of CII Thiruvananthapuram during the period 2011 to 13 and currently a member of the CII Kerala State Council and the CII Southern Region Subcommittee on Skills. I request Mr. Padmakumar to give the keynote address, please.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm just going to share the screen. Do let me know if it is. Is that visible?
Yes, it is visible. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much to the organizers and to Mr. Pandya in particular for this great opportunity. I was very happy to listen to Mr. Rajiv Nath's remarks, an industry veteran and a pioneer who has led the way for, I think, not just the Indian medical device industry, but been a source of inspiration, especially to MSMEs. Thank you, Mr. Rajiv Nath. My presentation will consist of the following. I'm going to look at what I consider key success factors for the industry, with specific reference to one factor, which is the medical device cluster. And I'll take a quick look at some examples from across the world, which I think will be helpful for us in India, since our topic and theme is how does India become a global manufacturing hub in medical devices. We'll take a look at a few potential clusters in India with a specific look at one. And then I will conclude with some suggestions for the government as well as a roadmap for the Indian medical device industry. So let's start with the key success factors. As you can see, one, you need the right ecosystem. We heard Mr. Pandya in his opening remarks, he mentioned that it is interdisciplinary. There is a lot of collaboration across sectors, and he's absolutely right. So the medical device industry, unlike many others, cannot exist without the right ecosystem. And to my mind, that ecosystem involves the cluster. Obviously, the industry cannot survive without adequate demand from both the public and private sectors. I will have something to say about that later on in my presentation. I think it goes without saying, for something as important as medical devices, which are such a critical ingredient of healthcare, we cannot dilute quality standards. There can only be one standard, and that has to be the international quality standards applied across the globe and obviously in our country. I will have something to say about regulation. I believe this is one area. Normally people complain about excessive regulation, and especially in our country. This is one area where I believe we don't have enough. I'll also touch upon R&D and human resources. But the reason why I've highlighted the medical device cluster is that is going to be the main thrust of my discussion today. So let's look at what is a medical device cluster. And I can recommend no better source for anybody who is interested in the subject than to read up Michael Porter's article on the Minnesota medical device cluster. So he, in his inimitable style, along with a bunch of colleagues from the Harvard Business School, they did an analysis to try and understand what makes a device cluster succeed. They studied the Minnesota and various other clusters in some detail, and they found that you need the following ingredients. You need R&D labs, you need shared testing, validation, and manufacturing facilities. You need at least one large university, a large teaching hospital, a large medical device company, engineering colleges to provide engineering talent, software and electronics, because today I think increasingly we are seeing most medical devices have software embedded in them. And then last but not least, the following two things. You need a large number of startups. And obviously, if you're in business, we can't do all this without funding. So this is broadly what you need for a medical device cluster. And I want to look at a couple of examples here. First, let's look at global experience. I think we all know that the United States is the forerunner when it comes to medical devices. They practically invented most medical devices. Most of the big companies, 9 of the top 20 are American companies. Most of the innovation comes from there. And as you can see, about 43% of the world's devices originate in the US. Now, if you take a look at this little graph at the bottom, you will see a list of the major clusters in the United States. So there are 4 clusters in California, including in Silicon Valley, in San Diego. You have New York, you have Boston, Denver, North Carolina, Texas, and so on. So many, there are about 20 such clusters. And what is very interesting is, where is the money going? Venture capital funds, that's what this graph shows you, is following the best and most developed clusters. And you can see that California is leading, which is way ahead when it comes to the funding that it has attracted. Let me draw your attention to one other example, which I think is even more relevant for us in India. Because let's face it, the United States is big, very advanced. They have a head start over us. They're a very rich country. So, you know, what lessons can we draw from them? Of course, we can follow their best practices, but to look at something which is more immediate, I thought let's look at a country which was actually not doing very well as recently as 40 years ago. That is, we're talking about 1980, Ireland. And Ireland, from zero medical device exports, it has become the second largest exporter of medical devices in Europe. It is arguably the biggest European medical device hub, and it has happened in the last 40 years. 18 of the world's top 25 medtech companies are located in Ireland. And there are reasons for this. It's the fact that there is a university industry nexus, that there are very strong linkages, that there is a very welcoming government. The tax rate, the income tax rate for companies is only 12.5%, and that is deliberately done by the government of Ireland. They have managed to attract not just the best and largest medical device companies, but also the top tech companies in the world. They have huge presences in Ireland. These are companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, you name it. They're all in Ireland. And why are they in Ireland is the question. I think it is because, apart from the fact that it is welcoming, they have a very strong ecosystem. Things work. Things are connected. the government of Ireland has invested very heavily in research, basic research especially. They've also invested in the infrastructure to make the place welcoming, livable, attractive for people to come and live and work in that country. So let's just pause for a minute there. I've given you two broad examples, from globally. This is the United States and Ireland. Let's come to our country. So Mr. Rajiv Nath has already alluded to some of these, clusters. The good news here, I'm not going to go into each of these. As you can see, Gujarat, we have in Haryana, in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, and so on. I'm not going to talk about any of them. These are all potential viable clusters. Let me talk about a cluster which is very close to me, which is where I am located. And I think we can draw some lessons from there. I live in the city of Trivandrum, southernmost tip of this country. And I think Trivandrum is just right for a medical device cluster. And let me explain why. I talked to you earlier on about what is needed for a device cluster. Now take a look at this, what we have in this city. You have a large number of R&D labs. You have the Biomedical Technology Wing of Sri Chitra. You have the Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology. You have the National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology. You have ICER. You have large R&D labs from companies like HLL Lifecare, TTK Healthcare, Terumo, Penpal, etc. We have universities located here. The Kerala University is here. You have the APJ Abdul Kalam Kerala Technology University. You need at least one large teaching hospital. We have 3. We need a large medical device company. We have Terumo Penpal, HLL Lifecare. We have TTK Healthcare. We have Quest Global. In addition, we also have the newest medical devices park, or Meds Park, which is part of the Bio 360 Life Sciences Park set up in Trivandrum. And I am associated with the park as a nominee of the government of Kerala. We have abundance of engineering colleges. We have lots of software and electronics talent. So as you can see, what makes medical device industry tick is the combination. It is the network between all these things. It is not one of these things. Plus, it is the startups which matter most. So if we can, Kerala today has the Kerala Startup Mission has done a fantastic job in encouraging startups. They've already been recognized by the government of India as, I believe, the best startup, state government undertaking in the country. So they've received a lot of accolades. And we are beginning to see some attention being focused on medical devices by the Kerala Startup Mission. Let me just conclude this point by saying, all of what I said, I think, are essential ingredients for a medical device cluster. But the most important one is the one thing which is unique, which is the Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute of Medical Sciences and Technology, set up by the government of Kerala initially in 1970. So it's taken 50 years. It is a premier hospital and research organization. It is unique in India and probably unique in the world. It is now under the DST. It was converted into an institute of national importance in 1980 by an act of parliament. And it is something which I think all of us should be proud of. And the existence of this institution here, I think, is something which we have not utilized fully. I hope to see that change very soon. So what can the government, what can it do to help? I believe that the government does not have to do too much. As somebody who has been in the medical device industry for 35 years, we have by and large managed without government. We have been helped by government, no question about it. In fact, Penpal would not have seen the light of day without government help. Penpal is actually a joint sector company set up by KSIDC, the Kerala State Corporation, and Mr. Balagopal, a private entrepreneur. It was based on technology developed by the Sri Chitra Institute, funded by the National Research Development Corporation, which took equity in our company. And without the patient capital of the government, state and center, Paul would not have survived, because medical devices by their nature require patient capital. They have long gestation periods. So that is absolutely critical. But what I'm talking about here is not just funding. I'm talking about funding of basic research. And I am very concerned that the government, the central government in particular, is not investing enough in basic research. There seems to be a move away from what the government has been doing for the last several years. And I would hope that the government takes the decision to invest heavily in material science, in biology, in medicine, in all the basic technologies, because that is something only the government can do. Number two, I would say that our public procurement system is flawed. And there are two ways in which it is flawed. Mr. Rajiv Nath has already alluded to some of the issues there. But I think the major issue is the flawed technical evaluation. We are actually comparing things which can't be compared, meaning things of very highly variable quality, treating them as the same, and then using L1. There's nothing wrong with L1, provided we are comparing similar products. So in order to circumvent and avoid that problem, what we need is standards. And again, I refer back to what Mr. Rajiv Nath said. Yes, we absolutely need standards. I am not in favor of, there are no such things like Indian standards or Western standards. There can only be international standards. There is an ISO. Most of these things are, known and established. I believe we should find the best standards and make them applicable in our country and throughout the world, because essentially medical devices are meant to protect patients. I have talked about regulation, and I think that the existing system is hopelessly inadequate. We need more regulation, much more intelligent regulation, not a lot of, and not foolish things like making every other offense criminal. This is just non-application of mind by the government. I think on the other hand, what we need is highly trained regulators. The government has to invest time, effort, and money in training up its regulatory machinery so that they can do an effective job. Last but not least, funding for skill development in medical technology applications. I think this is absolutely necessary. So these are the few things that I would expect from the government. So where does that leave us in terms of, what are my suggestions for the industry itself? Having been an industry man for the last 35 years, these recommendations are based on things which I have learned, most of it by experience. And I think the number one thing, if you are in the medical device industry, you have to embrace international quality standards. First step, you have to meet them. And there is no reason why we can't beat those standards and be much better than them. To do that, Indian industry has to invest in R&D. Now, Indian industry across the board is notorious for not investing in R&D. For some reason, most industry in any sector seem to have this kind of traders mentality, and we don't seem to believe in the long term. If we are serious about the medical device business, we have to invest in R&D. Likewise, we have a big inadequacy in training. I think as a country, we don't really believe in training. That has to change. And if we have to compete globally, we will need to have much more trained, skilled people. I personally believe that we should work with the government, but let us not, keep thinking that the government will solve all of. That's not the job of government. The job of government is to just give you an enabling environment. There must be law and order. It should be easy to do business. You should be able to enforce a contract. If you, put on a switch, the electricity should come. There should be water. That's about it. That's all that we should expect from the government. And we should expect the government for high-tech, med-tech, we should expect them to invest for the long term in basic research. Let us also remember, as I said earlier, if this is a long gestation business, we need to be patient. We need to work very closely with our suppliers and subcontractors. It has to be a very good, close relationship. We can't use the tender system and all that. It will never work. And therefore, it is again a long-term game. If we are prepared to do that, I believe that we will succeed. Last but not least, interdisciplinary collaboration between the hospital, the university, and the business organization. This is something in which we are very weak. We have seen some excellent examples like the Stanford India Biodesign in AIIMS. And I believe that that's a great example for all of us to follow. I personally feel that India has got a tremendous future in medical devices, provided we do the right things. And I think the ball is fair and square in our hands, in our court, in that of industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Padmakumar, for sharing your vision of the roadmap for the medical device industry in the coming times. I am sure your views would be useful to the participants that have joined in this webinar. Friends, we now have a couple of expert lectures from renowned personalities. Dr. Atul Sardana is a minimal access surgeon with a knack for applying technology to conventional surgical principles which benefits patients. He has been working in the healthcare sector for over around 30 years, starting as a social worker in one of Delhi's large government hospitals. He graduated in medicine and then did his master's in surgery in 2002 and has since been working extensively in minimal access surgery as a consultant surgeon in various hospitals of repute, including the Sir Ganga Ram Kolmet Hospital and the Apollo Spectra Hospital. He has over 30 national and international clinical publications and presentations to his credit, and is an honorary member of the World Association of Laparoscopic Surgeons and a member of the Indian Association of Gastrointestinal and Endoscopic Surgeons and the BIS Technical Committee on Surgical Instruments. He has been invited at various forums and conferences as a keynote speaker on medical device innovations and medical device plastics, and as a panelist on talks pertaining to the fundraising in the healthcare sector with particular focus on innovative medical device companies in India. He has been on the Committee for Medical Devices constituted by the Principal Scientific Advisor, the Government of India, and also as a panelist on innovation ecosystems in Gujarat organized by the GSBTM. He has been invited to deliver guest lectures at IIT Delhi on medical applications of textiles and has conducted workshops at the same place and in Mumbai for FTT and Sign Incubates on medical device regulations. He was awarded the fellowship of Indian Association of Gastrointestinal and Endoscopic Surgeons and was actively involved in training of surgeons in the field of advanced solid organ laparoscopic surgery, endostapling principles and techniques, and laparoscopic hernia surgery at Ethicon Institute of Surgical Education, New Delhi. He is a faculty for the conduct of the Fellowship of Indian Association of Gastrointestinal and Endoscopic Surgeons. He is also an active member of AIMED and a certified internal auditor of quality systems for medical device manufacturing as per ISO from TUV SUD. He is the vice chairman of the Indian Industries Association, which is a chamber of commerce, and it advocates policy changes to encourage the development of the MSME sector. He served as the head of technical operations at Biosurge Technologies and later was the founder chairman of Alfa Corpuscles Private Limited, where he currently serves as the head for R&D and product development. Alfa Corpuscles has been supported by the Technology Development Board DBT, ICMR and GSBTM for its various efforts at developing novel and technically advanced low-cost indigenous medical devices. Mr. Sardana has 3 national patents for his invention of the laparoscopic access trocar, a safety syringe and oral vaccine reconstitution and delivery device, and 2 PCTs filed for his invention of the safety syringe and oral vaccine reconstitution and delivery device. His efforts on the safety syringe have been acknowledged by the Wellcome Trust UK, and the invention has been awarded the Silver Prize at the Seoul International Convention Fair. He has the distinction of being honored twice at the Rashtrapati Bhavan by display of his innovative technologies during the exhibitions on innovations in medical device and biotechnology. I invite and request Dr. Atul Sardana to kindly give his speech, please. Dr. Sardana.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Sir, audible. Yes, sir.
I initially decided on starting with thanking Pandya sir for this opportunity year on year that he's been giving me. But I would first like to thank Mr. Dharmendra Joshi for being able to negotiate through these tongue-twisting words of my introduction. Thank you, Joshi sir. I am extremely grateful to Mr. Pandya and the organizers of this conference, who have been organizing these wonderful conferences year on year and bringing all of us together and giving us an opportunity to interact on these platforms. I am also grateful to Sri Rajiv, Nath and Sri Padmakumar, who have made my life much easier by talking on almost every aspect of today's talk. Nonetheless, I would like to start by saying that the Indian healthcare industry is on a high growth trajectory, having evolved significantly over the past 2 decades. However, healthcare provisions remain inequitable and challenges in access to quality and affordable healthcare persist in large parts of our country. The medical device sector also has grown considerably during this period and plays a critical role at each stage of healthcare continuum. Although it has been instrumental in improving access and affordability to healthcare services, a number of ecosystem constraints have led to a high dependence on import for addressing domestic demands. We have already seen the graph which Mr. Nath has started his talk with. Now, with recent policy changes and the skew in demand and supply dynamics, there is a significant opportunity and rationale for manufacturing medical devices in India. The government's Make in India initiative presents a platform for the sector to revisit the operating model, identify key imperatives for growth, and explore possibilities for creating a change in the medical device sector. While the government and the value chain participants have undertaken several steps to address the issues of healthcare access, quality, and affordability, all of these have been executed in silos, and that's why we see that there is this huge mismatch. Globally, medical device companies have focused largely on extending life expectancy and improving the quality of healthcare which is being provided, but there needs to be an increased affordability to make a widespread impact, which has been the focus of Indian startups in medical device industry. Therefore, the focus of Indian companies is to produce medical devices that are not only cost effective, but also, they provide quality healthcare. It is in this context that Make in India initiative becomes significant for the medical device industry. If you look at the global market, we expect to grow to about 520 billion by 2020, which was, a published figure. If you look at the Indian market happens to be amongst the top 20 in the world market size, but the per capita spend on medical devices in India is the lowest amongst the BRIC countries, and it is significantly behind when we compare to other developed countries such as US. This current under-penetration of medical devices in India represents a sizable growth opportunity for medical device manufacturing. This opportunity is significant, and recent studies indicate that medical devices are expected to be a $30 billion industry by 2025. There might be some debates in this number, but what we really need to understand is that if we look at the Indian market, we see a CAGR of around 14 to 15% in the medical device industry, which is significantly higher as compared to the global industry growth, which is about 4 to 5%. Even today in the medical device industry, we see that India has a small industry with disproportionate reliance on imports. When we look at the local manufacturers which produce the lower end of the technology value chain. And we realize that limited availability of technology and funding is not enabling the indigenous manufacturing. Import, as mentioned, constitutes about 75% of the medical device industry sales in India, and a range of factors contribute to this high percentage of share. The first, as we mentioned, was inverted duty structure. And inverted duty structure basically favors the imports of finished goods rather than raw materials and components for medical device manufacturing within the country. Also, even with the medical device rules coming in place, the absence of a concrete, dedicated regulatory framework specific to medical devices, not the drugs, is constraining investments in the market and lack of competent manufacturing ecosystem and skills based to support domestic manufacturing of medical devices. In addition, the global capacities of multinational firms are also boosting imports into India. The Indian medical device industry comprises basically of 4 segments. The first segment being consumables and implants. Then we look at diagnostics and imaging, instruments and appliances, and finally the patient aids and other. In order to bridge this gap existing in the medium high-end product technology, an increasing number of multinational companies are establishing their growing presence in India currently. If we see, nearly all top 40 global medical device companies today have presence in India, and the share of these companies is about 40 to 50% of the market in consumables and instruments and appliances, and about 80 to 90% in the other subsegments. Most multinational companies have their productions based outside India, and they import their products for the Indian market. Now, with the changing economic and regulatory environment, the medical devices industry is expected to grow significantly, fueled by a range of factors such as rising prevalence of chronic diseases resulting in higher demand for healthcare services, aging Indian population, increasing income and affordability resulting in higher demand and utilization of healthcare services. We have seen that the government in recent years has implemented several policies and measures to address the challenges that the medical device industry has been facing. Some of these include Medical Device Rules 2017, 100% FDI being allowed in medical devices under automatic route, the Make in India initiative for promoting indigenous manufacturing, development of quality standardization framework in India by BIS. The availability of advanced and sophisticated medical technology is also creating new markets and applications. There is increasing dependence of doctors on advanced medical devices and is leading to rapid obsolescence of existing medical technology, thereby creating a demand for replacement and upgradation and leading to the need for research and development. Also, increasing penetration of mobile and internet is another factor contributing to the rising awareness and demand in the healthcare sector. Also, there is the unique Indian ability for frugal engineering innovation, or what we commonly call as Jugaad, which has led to recent development of low-cost products that are at par with existing products and quality. One such shining example is Indian ventilator. The imperatives for medical device industry are all aligned to the objectives of Make in India, and these imperatives include availability of capital and technology investments for setting up manufacturing facilities in India, which is now available for both from private as well as government sector, such as the Technology Development Board in the form of equipment software. India-specific innovations to help improve accessibility and affordability of medical devices, which is being promoted by BIRAC and ICMR. Training and development of human resources for manufacturing, operations and services, which is being provided by the Skill Development Council and BCIL. Best-in-class infrastructure in compliance with global standards to support high technology industry, which is provided in the form of medical devices parks, which are being set up in various states along with common test facilities and single window clearances. Support to indigenous manufacturing in the form of public procurement policy, though there are a lot of lacunas in this policy and we are constantly advocating for the change. And production-linked incentive schemes, which currently are more focused on the bigger manufacturers rather than the MSME medical device manufacturers. But going further, challenges across multiple dimensions that are currently disablers to the growth of indigenous medical device industry need to be addressed. These include aspects that move around the macroeconomic environment, the medical device ecosystem, and those specific to medical device industry, much of which have been covered by speakers who have spoken before me. But nonetheless, I would like to just recapitulate on them briefly. One, which is unfavorable duty structure. Second, which is a low demand for certain product segments in India. Complexity and lack of transparent regulations. Absence of comprehensive laws and lax enforcement mechanism for intellectual property protection. Absence of indigenous quality certificate authority. Indian ecosystem support for medical device manufacturing is vastly lacking in terms of suppliers and raw materials, much of which again has to be imported. There is absence of structured innovate in India model. Ease of doing business is a word which is better said than actually realized by medical device manufacturers. There is this licensing regime, guidelines of regulatory affairs, layers of bureaucracy at center and state level, which are currently disablers for the Indian medical device industry. There are restrictive labor laws and a very high cost of financing in India as compared to other countries. To sum it all, if you look, there is a huge demand and supply dynamic which provides an unprecedented opportunity for the manufacture of medical devices in India. As there is an increased in per capita consumption of medical devices and newer market access, with India-based innovations that will lead to shortening of lead time, better serviceability of products, and should serve as de-risking options for the country in case of medical emergencies as we currently face today in this pandemic. Capitalizing on these factors, India can move up the technology ladder and focus on manufacturing even mid and high-tech products in the near term. As India continues to innovate and develop new technologies, global demand and potential in the near term and the medium term will provide India with an opportunity to become a major participant in the global supply chain of medical devices. And not only the low end, but the mid end and the high technology devices. We also have a lot of success stories from domestic manufacturers, where we see India is steadily developing its capabilities in manufacturing medical devices. Indian players have developed expertise in manufacturing products in consumable and implant segment, and in the near term, the focus needs to be on manufacturing mid and high-tech products. A key concern today for the medical device industry is that irrespective of sophistication of technology, all these segments and subsegments of medical devices are being treated uniformly by regulators and the other stakeholders in the ecosystem. We need to understand that going forward, as the industry moves towards indigenization, a differential treatment for each segment and subsegment is necessary. For instance, if you look at a high technology segment product, they normally have a long lead time and require a large investment. And being low volume products, the return on investment cycles are longer. Such products need to be treated differently, possibly with addition of incentives for development and manufacturing of such products. And if you look at the ecosystem now, the Indian ecosystem, we see that as it matures to enable indigenous manufacturing of comparable goods and comparable goods of global quality standards, tariff barriers need to be more seriously used to protect the indigenous manufacturing. This would ensure orientation of the industry towards quality, thereby making indigenous manufacturing global. And at the end, there is an urgent need to revise policies that steeply favor Make in India.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sardana, for highlighting various barriers to the development of the medical devices industry in India. I am sure your observations will be heard by all stakeholders and a better ecosystem shall develop for the medical device industry in the coming times. Thank you very much for sparing your time and for being here. Friends, Mr. Deepak Agarkhed from Bengaluru is our next and final expert speaker. He holds a bachelor's in engineering with a master's in business administration. Currently, he is employed as the Assistant Vice President, Engineering Services, Facility and Quality at the Sakra World Hospital. With a total experience of over 25 years, he has held various positions in the industry, with a few notable being the Technical Committee Member, NABH, Appeal Committee Member, NABH, QCI, and draft. He has been instrumental in drafting standards for biomedical engineering. He has been a technical expert for NABL medical device standards. He is also the co-chair for Indian Biomedical Skills Consortium, which is a part of the Quality Council of India. He has been project member for setting up 4 greenfield tertiary care hospitals in the Bombay Hospital in Indore, the ABMH in Pune, the Artis in Gurgaon, and the Sakra World Hospital in Bengaluru. He was instrumental to secure NABH accreditation for Armitage Hospital and Sakra World Hospital as the quality head. He has, to his credit, more than 30 articles on healthcare related topics in medical trade magazines and has contributed chapters in international and national books on healthcare like Quality Spine Care, which is a Springer publication, and a medical devices on an NABH publication. He is a recipient of the Excellence Award in Biomedical Equipment Facilities Improvement category at the international level, the Hospital Management Asia at Philippines, Global Best Kaizen Award in Hospital Discharge Process Improvement from Toyota Shusho, Japan. He is also a qualified Master Black Belt in 6 Sigma from the ISI, New Delhi. May I invite Mr. Deepak Agarkhed to give his presentation, please.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, yes.
Well, namaste to all of you. Thank you, Pandya ji, the organizing team, Dr. Girdhar Gyani from HPI, who has been my mentor, and all the invited members for sharing my views with respect to the potential global manufacturing hub for medical devices. Being from a part of a hospital, so my emphasis will be more on the healthcare delivery side, and also being an engineer, I'll be more stressing on the medical equipments. Though we use the term medical device and medical equipments, so I would like to briefly touch upon, though we have the experts, but I would like to take an opportunity to just mention that any instrument, apparatus, appliance, software, material or other articles, whether used alone or in combination, including a software intended by its manufacturer to be used specifically for diagnostic or therapeutic purpose and necessary for its proper application intended by the manufacturer. This is a medical device. Whereas medical equipment is a subpart of the medical device, but requires calibration, maintenance, repair, user training, decommissioning activities, which is going to be managed by clinical engineers like us. The medical device, as you can see, you can find from the screening of the patients to the diagnosis of the patient, treatment of the patient, restoration to the monitoring. Monitoring is not only restricted to the hospital, even the remote monitoring. So medical device is spread across the various phases of the patient who is going to come. Not only the patient, even the healthy people can come and take the health checkups, wherein the medical device is an integral part of it. You can see a picture wherein a wooden tongue depressor is also a medical device, and a sophisticated MRI or CT scan is to a medical device. So the industry for both need to be looked critically with respect to the manufacturing. India is not, it's not unknown for India with respect to the medicine. 6th century BC, Sushruta, father of surgery, has conducted this surgery, and he has devised lot of instruments which are basically medical devices. So the medical devices rule as per 2017 is based on the risk-based classification of medical device, wherein class A is a low risk like thermometer, tongue depressor, which I shown. Class B is a moderate risk like needles, suction equipments. Class C is a moderate to high risk like lung ventilators, bone fixation. Class D is a
Mr. Agarkhed, sorry to interrupt. Are you not sharing slides?
I am sharing the slides.
No, they are not visible on the screen.
No, sir, they are not visible. Kindly share it, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, now it has come.
Okay,
now it has
fine.
come.
Okay.
You can make it full screen.
Yeah, I'll make.
Thank you.
Well, I was talking about the medical device, so which I was covering, and I was showing the picture of the tongue depressor, to the instruments, to the patient physiological monitor, to the MRI. All these things are a part of the medical device. Some are medical equipments, which I was mentioning. I was also mentioning about our father of surgery, Sushruta, whom we are very much proud of, who has devised various instruments. And I was also touching upon the various class of the medical devices, which have been given as a part of the medical device rule. Well, some of the important facts about the medical device industry, so which I have taken from the AMTZ site. So WHO reported rank India as 112 out of 190 countries in healthcare index. India spends 5% of its GDP on healthcare. Medical device sector, smallest but one of the important in healthcare. Indian medical device industry is worth around 30,000 crores, and India's import bill is around 25,000 crores, which is something which need to be looked into. And India among top 20 markets in medical devices in the world, and is 4th largest market in medical device in Asia. So as we have the experts, so I need not have to stress upon, but CDSCO is a regulatory body in Indian government and is responsible for the medical device registration in India. So DCGI is the key official within the CDSCO responsible for approval of manufacturing of the specified medical devices. In India, manufacturing, import, sale, distribution of medical devices are regulated under DCA. In India, currently around 37 medical devices out of 5,000 require registration of medical devices required for registered before they can be sold. So the regulation is been for only 37 medical devices. And for all the other medical devices do not require registration, the manufacturer should obtain NOC from the DCGI. So as it's been presented earlier by the speaker, so the segment wise, you can see the segment wise the division. So diagnostic and imaging has a 30% share, consumable is 16%, IV diagnostic 10%, patient aids 9%, orthopedic and prosthetics 8%, dental products and other medical devices is 24%. So there has to be a various strategy for each of the segments when we are talking about the manufacturing in India. So as we can see, the more regulations are coming from the government, even to a small thermometer, to the BP apparatus and nebulizers. Being a part of a hospital, I can understand the pain of a patient when he has to pay out of the pocket. The patient has to pay a huge amount of bill. So when patient is under treatment, especially in the private hospitals, 20 to 25% of the cost of the medical technology or equipment device in total healthcare cost for a patient. so which is very, very high. As a part of the healthcare delivery system, you find typically 33% of the hospital assets are medical equipments, and 30 to 40% share of medical technology costing for setting up of any of the hospital. So 30 to 40% is been spent on the medical technology when we are planning a hospital, and typically 12 to, in fact, more than 12% of the revenue is spent on the medical devices in hospital on a month-on-month basis. What are the issues which have been faced at a healthcare delivery side from where I'm coming from? Cost of the medical equipment is expensive, including the flight charges and custom duty. Even the custom clearance, sometimes it comes to 27%, including GST, which is very, very high. Cost of consumables, accessories also expensive. It's not that when the capital equipment is procured, it's the end. So we have to procure the consumables and accessories, which are also very, very high cost. Some of the accessories, which are even costing 8% of the cost of the equipment itself. In fact, the maintenance cost is very, very high. Sometimes the maintenance cost goes up to 8% of the capital equipment, and every year on year, you have to pay with an escalation. In spite of all these things, there are lack of expert engineers to provide a timely service. You find big ticket items which have been procured, but they are being down non-functional because of lack of the technical experts. Delayed upkeep of the equipment due to part sourcing from the abroad. This is one of the, because you don't expect all the parts are being kept by the local dealers. So you may end up in a situation wherein the part has to be brought from abroad, and it is going to take a lot of time. So ultimately the patient is going to suffer. So is the hospital. High inventory holding cost of the medical devices. With respect to the medical devices, so which are being stored in the hospital, so since there is lack of the local manufacturers, so we need to have the lot of inventories kept in the hospital, which is going to take a huge space as well as the amount. No effective address of quality aspects of the medical devices. This is something which has been touched by our experts, so which I'm going to cover. So why India is not a global medical device hub? What are the major reasons? Let us look into those. Some of the points are common, so I'll skip those points. I'll not go in details, but I'll touch upon the major points which need to be highlighted. Insufficient ecosystem support, which has already been covered. So as a cluster was been mentioned, so we need to have a proper ecosystem for a market to manufacturing of the medical device to survive. Uncomplementary duty structure. Basically, the structure for many segments, sub-segments make an import cheaper than manufacturing in India. This is something which is really bothering. So you find that the equipment can be taken from China, which is cost is much, much lesser than what is being manufactured in India. So the hospitals are tempted to get the equipment from abroad rather than supporting the Indian manufacturers because of the uncomplimentary duty structure. Ease of doing business. India still lags behind most countries in terms of ease of doing business, which also has been covered by the previous speakers. Due to complex regulatory requirements, products currently require multiple agency approval. There is no single window approach which need to be emphasized on. This leads to time delays in multiple layers at both national as well as state levels. High cost of financing. Medical device industry is a capital intensive, especially big ticket items wherein it's a very capital intensive. The cost of financing ranges from 14 to 18%, which increases the burden for players planning to set up a medical device facilities in India. Most importantly, lack of complete tax and lax enforcement mechanism for IP protection. Intellectual property protection for a new technology is crucial for a success of global medical device players investing outside their home market. If they want to come to India, they definitely expect IP protection. In the absence of the enforceable IP laws, global players would lack confidence in investing in manufacturing assets, thus limiting Indian manufacturing. So when we are talking about a manufacturing, it's not only the indigenous, we also expect the people from abroad, the players from abroad to come. So IP protection is something which really need to be looked into. Absence of indigenous quality certification authority. So whenever we, as a hospital, when we talk about any equipment, we ask whether the equipment is C certified or FDA. So absence of licensing authorities reduce the export opportunities in many countries, which is basically bottleneck. We do have the medical devices or equipments which are being manufactured, but since they don't have a C or FDA, so it ends up in not, the potential is there, but they are not able to sell abroad. Currently, indigenous manufacturers require to get FDA CE certification to cater, which itself is a huge process. Approval process takes a lot of time. Indian certificate for medical devices, which was being covered earlier, is yet to make a visibility in the market. As a healthcare delivery, we still are not much aware of ICMED, which is from part of QCI. Poor domestic demand for certain segments or product categories. Small market for most segments or sub-segments of medical devices industry limit the investment, as any investment would require scale of viability. Limited demand coupled with inverted duty structure weakens the case of indigenous manufacturing. We find that the raw material cost itself is more than the cost of the finished product. Inadequate availability of skilled workforce and restrictive labor law. Despite of enough human capital, there are unfavorable labor laws and limited trained workforce in India to install, operate and service the equipment. We do have 4,000 engineering colleges, but only 149 are having biomedical engineering course. So when India can produce the software engineers, why can't India cannot produce the biomedical engineers? When there is an adaptability of mechanical engineer to become a software engineer, so we can train the not only biomedical engineers, we can train the instrumentation engineers, electronic engineers, electrical engineers, even mechatronics people, so that they can be drawn towards the medical device, medical technology. Limited focus on the indigenous invention. As the market has been majorly dependent on the imports, scope of indigenous invention has been limited. So I find when I was working in one of the company in my earlier days, so they were manufacturing, but they found it's very cumbersome. Rather than they started taking the agency and they started selling it. And it has eased the peoples who were service engineers, and there is no much trouble with respect to manufacturing, and the margins were very high. So they were tempted to go for the import of the, rather than concentrating on the manufacturing of the medical equipments. So newer market access due to India-based innovation. Few of the local companies and MNC with manufacturing facilities in India have successfully developed low-cost products that are on par with the quality with existing products that require complex technical know-how of manufacturing. We have a market in Middle East as well as in Africa. So it's all we need to is to tap the market by providing the quality products. How India as a global medical device will help? So let us look into this. So it can shortening the lead time and better serviceability. With a potential for strong domestic demand and other supporting factors, India is set to emerge as an ideal destination for setting up manufacturing facilities. Especially global companies are looking to align their global manufacturing footprint with shifting consumption patterns. Shorter lead time will lead to an opportunity for significantly enhanced service levels, promising well for increasing healthcare penetration in India. So India as a de-risking option in region. With MNC companies, India presents a good opening to simultaneously de-risk their business from regional global risk, especially after the COVID. The people would like to come out of China. So it gives an opportunity for India in the growing domestic market. India is set to become a major consumption location with high potential to become an export-oriented country after introduction of universal health scheme, where we have created a more demand for and accessible to the people, so that the GDP for the medical device is going to increase. Improved serviceability. Homegrown manufacturing would sustainably improve the serviceability. Definitely it is going to enhance. Healthcare service providers need not build redundancy. So this is where I come from. So there is no need for us to have more inventories when we know that it's been manufactured in India and the lead time is very short and the service for that is available and accessible. So it will reduce the cost for the providers. Reduction in time to set up a new healthcare centers. As we see, the medical equipments, especially the big ticket items, wherein the time from the time the order has been placed to the LC has been opened, it takes 12 weeks to 16 weeks for the equipment to come. Where we need, when we have a demand for setting up the quick medical healthcare centers. So if we have a local indigenous equipment, it will shorten the time. Access to medical devices to the rural India. Local manufacturing would enable deeper penetration to the healthcare services to rural India, hence increasing the access to the medical devices. So which is basically the constraint. So with the local markets, we can easily penetrate. Now, how can we boost manufacturing of medical devices? So timely intervention by government in promoting manufacturing. Focus on R&D ecosystem, which has been covered by the earlier speaker. Incentivization of indigenous manufacturing, which has been a part of the Make in India. Reduce the corporate tax rates. Ease product approvals. Reduce the input cost. Tapping the volume of domestic consumption. So what are the benefits of Make in India for medical devices? Less dependency on import items during pandemic situation, which has been earlier covered. So which we had a really challenge, which we came up. Lower the cost of healthcare. Improve the access of healthcare, which will happen. Economic development through investment and job creation, which is one of the important things which we'll be looking at. India-specific innovations, wherein we can make a footprint abroad. Viable healthcare business models are being created. Quality of healthcare delivery, wherein we have the indigenous manufacturing devices and the good doctors and the good infrastructure. Definitely it is going to help the patient. Ultimately, he will be the beneficiary. There are various success stories in Indian manufacturers. So there are many, but I have taken only a few. Like Appaswamy Associates, who have been pioneer in the ophthalmic. Phoenix, who has come with the neonatal products. Thomson for the medical devices. Scanray, who has been pioneer in supplying the ventilators during the COVID times. Johri, who has set up for the rehab products. And there are many more success stories are there, which have come up well and they have made a footprint abroad too. So what are the India's key competitive advantages? Low labor cost, of course. Skilled human resource. So a combination of clinician and an engineer will definitely create a skilled human resource. So which right now is lacking. So we need to have a combination of clinician and engineers who come up with any of the issues clinician face. They can reach to the engineers and they can work together and come up with a solution. Untapped local demand. As I was mentioning, that huge demand, huge volume is there with Ayushman Bharat coming. So where a lot of medical colleges coming across India. So there is a huge demand. And vast natural resources, which is what India is famous for. How do we realize the potential of Make in India for medical devices? What are the roles a government can play? Independent regulation for medical devices, incentivizing the medical device manufacturing, parity of duty on raw materials with finished goods should be maintained, as I was mentioning earlier. Duty credits on import of raw materials need to be provided, enabling concession for duty VAT parity with import equipments, ensuring quality with FDA or FDA equivalent certifications. Government can play a role in enabling the medical device manufacturers to foster access of the FDA or FDA equivalent certification. Segment-specific incentives and state-specific incentives can be rolled out. Government can large purchase of the medical devices with a network of medical colleges, secondary hospitals, primary healthcare, PHCs and sub-centers. So volume can be created. Further, preference of indigenous manufacturing devices in government procurement. So price preference or incentives for domestically manufactured products, standardization in purchase requirements, higher reimbursement for locally manufactured products, expanding skill incentives to high technology manufacturing, access to cheaper subsidizing funding, creating an ecosystem with research institutions which have been covered by previous speaker, single window clearance for setting up of the manufacturing plants, creating positive image of brand India, that's Make in India. Besides the government, so the role of healthcare industry is also very, very important. So medical device companies, both MNC and Indian organization, need to leverage on local production to cater local demand and international markets. Carry out India-based innovations. As I said, if the IP protection has been strengthened in combination with indigenous manufacturing. MNC can view manufacturing in India as a risk diversification strategy. And as a hospital, what can we contribute? Input for innovations, because hospital is where the patients are being taken. They know what are the pains the patient will go through during the surgery, during the procedures. They can come with their ideas, which can be an input to the engineers. Enable and test of awareness of products. So clinical trials can be enabled so that the trials can be done, so that the new devices can be tested. What are the current initiatives which have been taken by Government of India? Definitely Government of India has been promoting the medical devices. So it has recognized the medical device as a sunrise sector. So 100% FDI is permitted in this sector without government approval for either greenfield as well as brownfield investments. Device classification which has been created as per the international norms. Device amendment rules have to bring all the medical devices under regulations as drugs. Increase public health spending through Ayushman Bharat. Production linked incentive schemes for medical devices has been brought in. Funding of the medical device parks in country by 2020. Introduction of post-market surveillance for imported and manufacturing of the medical devices. As it was been shown earlier by earlier speaker, so the cluster of medical devices which have been spread across the various places in India. One of the medical device park is AMTZ, Andhra Pradesh Medical Tech Zone. So which has been an early mover, so which has come with the pre-built manufacturing units. It has come with common scientific facilities like testing labs, the biomaterial testing, 3D printing, X-ray tube manufacturing. It has a common facilities which is creating the ecosystem, that it has an exhibition, showrooms, it has the regulatory office, it has a strategic development in overall. So it's a one stop for the medical devices. So the manufacturers can go and easily start manufacturing the units. So same thing has been planned across India in various other places which have been shown. So to conclude, so we have moved from where our ancestor Shushruth has started doing a surgery with an indigenous instruments, with a efforts of the government, with a Make in India. So let us try our level best so that all the sophisticated surgeries which can be done with all the manufacturing which is happening in India. So I'd like to thank you, and I would like to thank for the resources which have been provided by AMTZ, Make in India, Deloitte, and input from the various healthcare experts. With this, I'd like to thank you for providing an opportunity, and hope this information will be useful to all the stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak Agarkhed, for sharing the concerns and cautions for the stakeholders, particularly from the side of the hospitals which use the medical devices. I am sure your deliberations and all the deliberations that have taken place during the evening today will provide an insight for a process to be developed in the minds of the stakeholders, everyone, including the manufacturers, the other healthcare service professionals, and also the government, to think upon how best we can develop the ecosystem that everyone wants to work with. So friends, this brings us to the fag end of today's webinar. Since we do not want to overshoot the time, we are not entertaining any questions here. However, any specific questions for specific speakers which you may want to address them may be sent to the organizers by email. They will be conveyed to the experts and the answers will be mailed back to you. So to conclude and propose a word of thanks, I request Mr. D.L. Pandya, the webinar convener, to propose a vote of thanks, please. Mr. D.L. Pandya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dharmendra. We had a very good perspective from 4 different angles today by the expert speakers and the leaders of the industry. Rajiv Nathji, with a positive note, mentioned about the growth in the exports more than the growth of the imports, and that is one of the reasons that there is a potential for the country to develop the manufacturing sector and maybe reach the global level of manufacturing for the medical device sector. He also mentioned number of challenges that we must pass through. We had a good presentation from Mr. Padmakumar. He shared he gave the roadmap for the medical device industry to grow. He emphasized on the ecosystem and also shared with us how can India grow, or how can the government help the industry to grow. So that was the very good, insightful presentation by Mr. Padmakumar. We have a very rare combination of medical professionals and medical device professional together in single person that we have from Dr. Atul Sardana. I thank Dr. Sardana for the time and the insightful information he shared from the emphasis on the research and innovation. He being one of the major, leading innovator also in the sector. It was a very useful presentation from Dr. Sardana. And last but not the least, we had a perspective from the healthcare delivery side from Mr. Deepak Agarkhed. And he also gave a very good idea about what the government should do, what the industry should do, and how there is a good potential for India to grow the manufacturing. Not only potential, but there is a serious need also, and the large demand supply gap also means that if we meet the demand of the indigenous manufacturing, indigenous supply, there is a big potential to grow the manufacturing. So thank you very much, all the four dignitaries, for your knowledge and vision for the sector, and also some insightful leads into how India can grow into a global manufacturing hub. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the industry associations and sponsoring companies, as well as the delegates participating today. I would also like to share that today was the first day of the 5-day series of webinars. So tomorrow we will have a focus on the medical polymer, which will be focused again, which will be followed again by emphasis on the ecosystem. I mean, how the ecosystem can facilitate the growth. And then on 17, we will have a presentation, special session on standardization, certifications, and regulations. Last but not the least, we have one of the important segment of the industry, that is the IVD industry, diagnostic industry. And we have a special session to be coordinated by the Association of Diagnostic Manufacturers of India on December 18. So I invite all the participants today to take benefit of all the remaining 4 sessions, and also benefit from the interactions with the experts, more than 30 experts that will be sharing their knowledge during the coming days. Thank you very much again. And thank you very much the team iRadical for supporting IMDI in facilitating and logistics. Thank you very much all.
Thank you. Before we all leave, let me once again repeat and invite you to tomorrow's webinar with the theme Medical Polymeric Materials, Components and Processing, Innovations and Developments. Thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to your company tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Sardana, thank you very much, sir. I take disadvantage of your being late.